is Horror Sucks, the podcast where we watch terrible horror movies so you don't have to. I'm Ashley Atkins, and I'm mad at Carter for not being able to make plans.
And I'm Carter Rhodes, and you're watching Disney Channel. So, this week we are watching, finally we're in person, and we're watching Event Horizon. I am very excited for this. This is one of the most, good, bad movies I've ever seen, really.
Yeah.
So, it's exactly what we made this movie for, this podcast for, is to
I didn't even have to say anything to Carter. I just looked at him like, what the
She just
heck?
gave me a look and I knew. So it's the perfect kind of critically failed movie that then has a cult following that we need to now convince people this movie sucks. You shouldn't like Event Horizon. But I do enjoy it.
I was going to say, I don't even think I can convince myself that. Any housekeeping we need to do?
Not that I know of. I'm ready to jump right into this if you are.
I am too. I guess the only thing I want to say is thank you everyone for sticking through us for the last 2 weeks, even though we said that we would do Event Horizon 2 weeks ago. We're finally getting to it.
We have every reason to believe that the audio quality will be good from here on out.
Oh, yes. Also true.
It's been rough, but thanks for sticking with us.
Yes. Well, Carter, why don't you kick us off with the plot?
Okay, so first, a little bit backstory. The film is directed by Paul Anderson, and he is my all-time hero because he's married to Mila Jovovich, and I've been in love with her forever.
Who?
From Resident Evil. Don't give me who.
Oh my
She's
God.
the all-time she leads everyone in most on-screen kills. Everyone. Okay. That includes Sylvester Stallone. That includes Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I've never seen Resident Evil.
It's pretty bad.
So stay tuned for that one.
We will. Actually, yes, it is on our list. We will watch Resident Evil. But anyway, I digress.
It does keep coming up as my recommended on Hulu.
It's real nice and bad. Actually, the first one is good. I will not stand for slander on the first one. So, this movie comes out right after Paul Anderson directed, what was it?
Mortal
Kombat. And he wanted an R-rated movie. I'm stealing your facts. I'm not going to apologize for it. So,
I'm about to throw my pencil into Carter because these are just my facts.
He turned down roles or the opportunity to direct X-Men. There was another big one, right?
What was it? I was just looking at it. Oh, Alien Resurrection is the...
That must not have been what I was thinking of.
He turned down the opportunity to direct X-Men, The X-Files, and Alien Resurrection.
Okay, maybe it was The X-Files.
But IMDb lists this 3 times where what he chose not to direct in order to direct this film. Just put it all in one slot. Guys.
Okay, so now, to get into the plot, the movie takes place in the year 2047. Deep space travel is now possible, and they created a vessel called the Event Horizon, which is a ship with a new type of transportation engine that's supposed to allow it to travel large distances, and it just goes missing. And 7 years later, in the year 2047, it reappears and lets out a distress signal. So the Lewis and Clark, which is a search and rescue deep space vehicle, is sent out. Its crew is Captain Miller, First Mate Stark, Pilot Smith, Med Tech Peters, Engineer Justin, Medical Doctor DJ, Technician Cooper, and they're bringing along Dr. Weir, who designed the Event Horizon. That's a lot of names, so here's what you need to know. Laurence Fishburne is Captain Miller. Sam Neill is Dr. Weir. That's Sam Neill of Jurassic Park fame. And then Stark, Justin, and Cooper are the only people you need to know, and you don't really need to think about them.
Thank you for stealing even more of my facts.
All right. It's not a stealing of a fact just to say that a character is played by... That's not even a fact.
It's included in the fact section.
Fine. Anyway, on the flight, I guess, over, Weir explains to the crew that the Event Horizon has a gravity drive that allows it to travel faster than light by creating a wormhole, which lets it teleport between 2 points. And to do so, it passes through another dimension. They listen to the distress signal, and It's just screaming, static, and someone says the line, Liberate me, which is Latin for save me. They arrive at the event horizon, they explore the ship, and while exploring, they find very little signs of life. They find a corpse frozen, blood on the walls, but a crew used to be here. Now there's one body, and nothing's alive. So while exploring, the gravity drive unexpectedly turns on and opens a portal which sucks Justin inside. When he returns, he's catatonic, and he won't respond to outside stimulus. Eventually, he wakes up and attempts suicide by launching himself into space, although he's eventually saved by Laurence Fishburne. The crew in general begins to see hallucinations from their past, things that they've regretted, like dead children or a wife that passed away, people they had to leave behind, things they never told anyone. And ultimately, they end up discovering footage of the crew mutilating and torturing each other. And with higher quality, they know that the line that they say instead of Liberate me is Liberate tutte me, ex infernus, which is instead of save me, it's save yourself, ... from hell. So the running theory is that when passing into another dimension, they entered this hellish alternate dimension, and they were driven insane by the pain and the horrors that they've seen, and that when returning, the event horizon has gained some level of intelligence and is now a living creature. Miller decides to evacuate the ship, and when Gon destroys it, Weir is just fully possessed by the ship and gouges his eyes out, sabotages the Lewis and Clark, which forces the crew to stay on the event horizon. During the sabotage, Smith is killed and Cooper is blasted into space. Peters is lured into an elevator shaft by the ghost of her son, and she falls to her death, much like in Ghost Ship. There's a lot of parallels. And Weir ambushes and murders DJ, the medical doctor. Weir activates the gravity drive on a 10-minute delay to take the crew and the ship to the alternate dimension. But Cooper, despite being blasted off into space, manages to return, distracts Weir long enough for Miller to blast him into space and escape. The event horizon has the crew quarters and the gravity drive separate, so that in a worst case scenario, they can separate the two and the crew can use the quarters as sort of a lifeboat. So they decide to use that and to escape the event horizon because they can't sabotage the gravity drive. While they're preparing to escape, Miller is attacked by Weir, who has somehow returned. It's not explained. And Miller activates the explosions, killing himself but saving his crew. And the movie ends with them being rescued. And they look in horror as their rescuers all have Weir's mutilated face, which is just a hallucination. But as the camera pans out, the doors to their life vessel unexpectedly close, implying that the ship still has some level of control.
Very nice.
So why don't you tell us whatever facts I didn't cover?
Well, you didn't leave me much. All right, so like Carter said, the movie is directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, who is known for
being married to Mila Jovovich.
Sure. And also for directing Mortal Kombat and Resident Evil Apocalypse. He turned down all of those movies, like Carter said, to direct this film. So this movie is influenced by Hellraiser, which is created by Clive Barker. And Clive Barker actually was a consultant on the film.
And fun fact, Clive Barker, by his own admission, is a 6 on the S&M scale.
You'll never forget it. Did I tell you how someone listened and then asked me where I was on the S&M scale?
No, you didn't. Oh yeah, that's right. That was on your dating profile, right?
Yeah.
That's
well,
such a weird
that
question.
Wasn't specifically on my dating profile. The podcast is on my dating profile, and someone listened to it and then asked after listening. They were like, "Oh, I listened to the episode on Hellraiser." I was like, "Oh, great. What'd you think about it?" And they were like, "Oh, it's good." And then they said, "So where are you on the S&M scale?" And I stopped responding.
my one complaint about that is that you didn't make it obvious that it was a setup to a joke, so it sounds like we legitimately cut a conversation.
I know. So Clive Barker was a consultant on the film, which you can clearly tell was influenced by that movie.
We'll talk more about it later, but you can tell by a lot of the makeup, especially with the people who mutilated themselves. They have a very symmetrical line of cutting, much like Pinhead.
Yeah, at first I didn't see it, but towards the end, you definitely do.
Honestly, I didn't see it until it was pointed out. Now I feel almost stupid for not getting it.
Yeah, I had seen that one kind of as I was watching the movie, and I was like, oh. So the original cut of the movie was extremely more violent, to the fact that actually the studio asked Anderson to cut it down to be more tolerable for audiences.
If I remember correctly, the first draft actually received an NC-17 rating.
It did. And also, the movie only took 10 months from greenlight to completion to create.
That seems impressive.
Yeah, it's extremely short.
I don't know much about the timelines people usually work with on movies, but that sounds good.
No, it's very fast. The movie had a $60 million budget, and it only made $47 million. And it originally performed poorly, but now it has a huge cult following that kind of keeps it going.
And we're going to tell you why you're wrong to think that, while also trying to get you to watch our podcast.
Listen to our podcast.
Oh my God. Whatever. So.
Wait, I have one last thing. They are developing a series based on this movie.
It's going to be bad unless they get Laurence Fishburne and Sam Neill back.
If they don't, I'll be mad.
So, are we ready to talk about the good?
I am ready for
the good. Dun dun dun.
Do you want to kick us off?
Sure. I would like to start with, I really liked the symbolism of the movie. The gravity drive was meant to be inspired by the Hellraiser cube. And so it also has, it's this kind of bumpy black ball that's like, I don't know, 6 feet in diameter. So it's a big, big sphere in the center of the room. And it's got these kind of rotating rings around it. And it's very clearly inspired by like the rings around a planet. And I liked that. There was one scene in which a character is going down a hallway right before she dies, and the hallway is actually literally shaped like a coffin. I really liked that foreshadowing.
That was nice. I'm not gonna lie, as you were talking about the sphere being the Hellraiser box, all I could think of was just, this movie is basically Hellraiser in space. And now I'm disappointed at the missed opportunity.
What a funny concept, though, because
it's a completely different movie.
Paul Anderson was worried that it was going to come across too much like Alien 2, that he kind of went, I would argue, too far trying to be like Alien.
Yeah.
Or trying not to be like Alien, rather, and thus lost a lot of opportunities. But it's funny that it's too similar to a shittier horror movie, right?
Yeah,
why not mimic one of the best horror movies of all time?
I have to agree.
What did you like about it?
You know, I actually, hard to say, but I really liked the characters, some of the characters themselves, and I'm going to bring that up now. I thought the acting overall was pretty good. I do think there were some moments that were just bad, but I don't think it was on the actors themselves more than the direction of the film. But I really loved Cooper, and I thought, you know, Sam Neill and Laurence Fishburne were fantastic. But there's one moment where they all sit around and introduce the characters one by one, which I hate when movies do this because I immediately forget who they are. Yeah. But one of the guys, his name is DJ, but he said his name was DJ Trauma, and now I really want to be DJ Trauma at the club.
That was Jason Isaacs. That was Draco Malfoy's dad who said that.
It was really funny. I really loved the acting and the characters. I thought they did a good job of some of them being really well developed. And yeah.
Absolutely. I have the characters listed on my good as well. They're not terribly unique, but they all are very human. Or not, they are unique. They're not original. Like, they're not groundbreaking, but they're very consistent. Like, the serious characters are very reserved. They listen. The kind of emotional characters are more likely to freak out. They just behave like humans. It doesn't feel like they're puppets dancing for the plot. It feels like people in a scenario.
It doesn't feel out of the box.
Mm-hmm. And on top of that, they all really did behave like coworkers. Mm-hmm. Like, they gave each other a little bit of shit, but they also knew each other's strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
They were all trying to help each other. And it really did feel like, I guess how I would imagine, I've never been there, but what it might be like on a naval ship.
Yeah, exactly. I felt that way too. It was very believable that they worked together daily.
So I, again, am trying to win Paul Anderson's love. And I'll do that by saying another thing I loved about this movie was just the camera work in general. They had a lot of really great shots, like when characters would look at the gravity drive, it would fill their entire pupil with just light, and it was beautiful. It was symbolic. I loved it. There was a scene in which they enter the gravity drive room, and it's a shot from overhead where the characters are walking around it talking, and the gravity drive just dominates the room. It is massive, and it's clearly both what they're talking about and like literally talking around. There's special effects when they're in the lights. Sam Neill's in the vents, and they do a dolly zoom, so the background stretches way out behind him, and while that's happening, lights from furthest away to closer start shutting down. Kind of like every horror movie ever, but the combination with that and the dolly zoom was a really cool effect.
It was good. There were some shots that I really liked. There are some shots in my bad that I will bring up, but one shot that I also loved was they kind of did a wide pan of the ship in orbit in space. I guess I don't know how to correctly phrase it, but there's a thunderstorm going on around it, and there's not a whole lot of light reflecting onto the ship, but the thunder does a really good job of lighting the ship, and I really enjoyed that.
On that note, there is also another shot that I loved where one of the characters is in the cockpit and lightning flashes in the dark room, and you just see the wall behind her is just coated in blood, and then it's just back after the lightning stops. That was another great shot. Yeah. So overall, that was really good. I mean, I'll talk about the thunderstorm later. I think it's a little cheesy, but they used the effects to it well.
That's it. I don't disagree with you, but the effects were good.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
The other thing that I really liked the opening scene where Weir is in a stasis stream and he sees Claire,
his wife who killed herself while he was gone.
I thought it was well done, where we definitely knew it wasn't necessarily happening. Like, it felt like a dream without the cheesy effects of like showing it's a dream. So I really liked that, and I don't know, I really liked how it was filmed, or I just liked that scene.
Paul Thomas Anderson was not. That's his name, right?
It's Paul W.S. Anderson.
Who the fuck is Paul Thomas Anderson? That's another director, I think, that I keep mixing up.
It is. I'm going to look up
Paul
is.
Anderson was not the problem with this movie.
No.
I truly believe he's an excellent director.
Paul Thomas Anderson directed Licorice Pizza.
Oh, that's what
as well as Boogie Nights.
Oh, that's what I know from. In general, I really liked the concept of the movie. A lot of movies will have space be like Star Trek, where it's this exploring the seven seas, seeing all this cool stuff. And both Alien and this movie did a good job of making it feel like it's not about the ship, it's about space outside, which will kill you. Yeah. It felt like a submarine movie that happened to be in space. It's just not.
I think that's a good comparison, yeah.
It felt like this is the only thing keeping you from dying. There's no glorious, like, wind in your hair is you just sleep for 6 months until you arrive at your destination, and if there's any screw-ups, you never wake up. So I really did like the kind of gritty nature of that. The only movie I've seen that there were no windows, or there were obviously, but there weren't a lot of windows. The lighting was all artificial. I haven't seen movies do that since like Alien. I'm sure there have been others, but that's the only one that comes to mind. Do you have anything else to add?
Oh, yeah, I do.
Okay.
Just some more specific scenes that I really enjoyed. First of all, the tunnel where Weir crawls through, that's like completely like circuit boards on all sides and like bright green.
Yes.
I thought it was cheesy, but I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was interesting to look at. It was interesting. It was an interesting way to make a mundane scene more captivating. So I enjoyed the kind of cheesiness of it. I also really liked, there was a scene where, was it Smitty? No, it was Justin. Justin walks through a tunnel, and it's like there's dots in the tunnel that's kind of crossing, and it spins. And it just like, at first I was like, this is so disorienting. But then like once the camera kind of focuses in on the scene and on Justin walking, it looks really cool.
Honestly, that scene kind of bums me out because I thought it was a missed opportunity. What I thought might be cool, and it might look stupid because I'm not a director, but I would have liked, once we see a shot to establish that it's a tube with a stationary walkway and a spinning exterior, if the camera tracked with the spinning exterior, and so it looked like Justin was the one spinning.
That would have been good.
Might have looked stupid, but, you know.
They also could have done more with like shadow play, but I appreciated what it was trying to do, at least. That's
I'd make a Joy Division reference if it wasn't like 60 years out of date.
Yeah. When Justin, after he walks through that tunnel, he comes across this like, he comes into this weird goop that's kind of floating around him, and
it's implied to be leaked like coolant fluid.
I think that's, you're right. But then you're right. So there's fluid kind of surrounding him, and then he walks up to this kind of mirrored surface, and he puts his hand to it, and it kind of ripples effect that it's supposed to be, I don't know if it's more coolant or what, but it's a portal.
Yeah,
basically.
So that was when the gravity drive opened up right before it sucked him in.
Yeah, so he puts his hand to it, and it's like, whoa. And then it just kind of, and he just gets sucked into it. And I really enjoyed, because in my mind went, as he sucked in. So that just kind of made me laugh.
So this is a shame, because that's the perfect transition to the bad, but I do have one more note.
I also have a few more notes, but go ahead.
All right. So we'll just put a pin in that. Remember that. So one of the things I liked about this movie that probably would get old if every sci-fi movie did this, but they do a really good job in the beginning. They literally have like, they say, I don't remember exactly the years, but it's like 2017, space travel first becomes commercially viable. 2030, like this engine comes out. It was a very succinct explanation of their space travel history that caught you up on everything that was important and still giving you a sense of time.
I liked it.
Like, I don't know. For some movies, Star Trek's bad about this, where they just give you a date so far in the future that you're like, yeah, of course they have space travel, but I don't know what the world looks like. I don't know if this has been so long that almost certainly every country has fallen and become a new country at some point. I don't know what the world looks like. This did a good job of kind of grounding you and giving you a sense of what was happening. And on top of that, I did like the explanation of the gravity drive. It was complex enough that made it clear that they weren't just throwing sci-fi words at you. However, Laurence Fishburne did my least favorite thing ever listening to it, where he's like, "In English, doctor?" Because they always do a good enough job of explaining it.
But then they need to redub it down.
But yeah, like, I don't know. I don't know anyone stupid enough that, like, when they're explaining that, needs it simplified. I feel like they would just tune out until something exciting is happening. I don't know that they need simpler explanations.
it's easy enough to grasp, even if you do tune it out.
Yeah.
Like, it's honestly really not that important for the most part. Like, it is, but it's not. Like, if you don't completely understand it, you're not going to miss out on the movie.
Yeah, they got across very quickly that this is an experimental drive that's capable of moving faster than anything else, perhaps dangerously so. And that's all you needed to know.
Exactly.
But they just stabbed themselves in the foot, shot themselves in the foot, whatever. They stabbed themselves in the eye, I don't know. Chop themselves up into little bits by
Please
doing that.
keep trying. You've already gotten
they
it
chummed
correctly.
themselves up. Do you have anything else that you liked?
I don't actually know. I didn't like that. There's a quote. I hope this isn't your quote, but there is one specific quote that I really liked. This movie's pretty quotable, but Dr. Weir, Cooper says something that he's like, saw something or whatnot. He was going kind of crazy because that's what the ship did to you. But he was telling Miller about it, and Dr. Weir was there, and Dr. Weir walks up behind him, kind of pats him on the shoulder and says, "Mr. Cooper is delusional," and then turns to him and says, "If you don't mind me saying so." Which that made me laugh. That was my favorite quote in the movie, so I really enjoyed it. I don't know. Your face is not giving me any indication of...
Yeah. I neither dislike nor like that quote. It's all yours.
Oh, great.
So we ready to talk about what we didn't like?
I'm ready to talk about the bad.
Okay, so my biggest issue is the concept of the ship causing hallucinations makes it silly. It's technological horror. Part of what makes it scary is the fact that it's something we don't understand. It's accomplishing a relatively simple task, traveling somewhere really quickly, by doing something that our minds cannot wrap our heads around. But the fact that he tries to make it like a haunted house in space inherently, binds it to a formula that we understand and a cause that we can wrap our heads around. And so personifying it, to me, just removes any actual element of fear to it. What I would have liked to see is almost implications that the ship is haunted, and it slowly becomes more clear that it's more centralized than that the ship itself is in control, not ghosts. That might have been interesting, but instead it started, like a haunted house. It's just things move and it's all clearly connected to...
The hallucinations just like kind of threw the movie through into like a weird realm versus I think having a haunted ship in space could have been interesting if it wasn't weird hallucinations.
Agreed. Because it was like, first of all, Weir was haunted by hallucinations well before he got to the ship.
Yeah.
And then people were haunted by their like kids and stuff. It just wasn't...
I kind of took away from the movie, to be honest.
Agreed.
It didn't add anything.
And then to that note, the random explosions that just kind of forced them to stay there, they were silly. It wasn't... Yeah. Horror does need that thing that anchors you there. That's just a part of the movie. It's in every slasher. The car breaks down or something. But it needs some kind of something. Not like... just the ship won't let you leave. It's lame.
Yeah.
Fucking Zombievers had a better explanation than that.
They set the precedent without having to actually explain it. I have to bring up my least favorite thing of the movie.
Okay.
I'm so angry. So when I watched it, I assumed that it first came out in 3D. Because there are multiple moments where things just fly towards the screen.
Especially in the zero gravity, absolutely.
Yes. That coolant just kind of flies towards the screen. Pretty sure at one point blood flies towards the screen as well. So, when you're watching it there, you get to a point where you've seen enough 3D movies with and without 3D glasses to say, oh, this is meant to be 3D. Yeah. So I just kind of assumed it and was just going to kind of make like a general complaint about it. So, but then I decided while Carter was explaining to the plot to actually look up whether it was in 3D because I never bothered to. It's not. It's never been 3D. nothing. Instead, they use CGI to make it seem like it might be 3D. But nope. Don't worry, folks. No glasses needed for this movie. And I hate it because it just wastes screen time to kind of make things fly toward the screen for no reason. If it was 3D, I would understand it. I'd be like, yeah, all right, you kind of want to show it off. Versus there's no purpose to things flying towards the screen. It's not in like a jump scare kind of way. It is a this floats towards you kind of way. It makes no sense.
On that note, the effects in general, especially the zero gravity effects, were terrible.
Yeah.
They were all, the things floating in space were very clearly digitally added after the fact. They clearly looked like a different part of the environment. It was terrible. The sound effects were legitimately worse than Bigfoot Hunter. It was...
Do you mean Sasquatch Hunters?
That's what I meant, yeah. So it just... Every sound effect was clearly taken from, like, whatever the audio equivalent of clip art is like, some character will get punched and it's like, pow! It sounds like a cartoon.
Yeah.
It just like bang, pow!
It had a lot of cartoonesque
yeah.
moments.
Like, I don't know, someone shot something, it's like, ping, as it bounces off. It just was so... I don't know that they had any original noises for it. On top of that, the practical effects weren't great either. Like, whenever the characters didn't have eyes, which was a common theme, it just looked terrible. It just... I don't even know how to describe it. It looked like someone painted on no eyes, and they did a good job, but then the actor had to open their eyes a little bit to see. So it looked... kind of real, except it was clearly fake because obviously it was. And then my personal favorite was one scene in which Laurence Fishburne, they tried to make him look sweaty, and instead it was just, he was glittery. It was absurd.
I don't think I even noticed that.
It was a close-up. We'll use it in our in our teaser trailer for this.
So the other thing that I do have a complaint about, I have a lot of complaints.
Oh yeah, I'm like maybe halfway rounding up. I got a lot of complaints.
I've only checked off one thing. Honestly, I have some issues with some of the camera work. So I know we pointed out that there's some beautiful shots,
right.
But anytime there is an action scene, the camera just shakes back and forth to show for drama, for effect. But it looks so bad.
Yeah, it does. It does. It really does.
I just was like you can it's not like, oh my God, the room is rumbling like this. You can clearly tell the cameraman is going,
yeah,
shaking it. It was horrible.
I would argue that goes under effects.
Does it?
I that's just my argument. And that's just a semantics thing. Is like, that's still a valid complaint. Is it looks garbage.
It looks so bad.
Yeah. Oh my God. When they were approaching the event horizon and like they quote unquote crashed, they like hit something and then just everything exploded, sparks, and everyone was like, whoa, and fell forward. It was dumb.
On that note, a lot of the action scenes were very static. Like, they all just kind of stood there and were like, oh, what do we do? What do we... And, like, they weren't kind of active. And, I mean, yeah, they were static. They just kind of, like, stood still, made short movements, kind of looked at each other, talked to each other, which, I mean, in reality, it's pretty realistic, but it's not very entertaining.
Yeah. I don't hate the concept because, like I said, it should have been kind of like a submarine movie.
Right.
I liked that one of the scary scenes in the movie was just Weir just hauling ass down a hallway from somewhere he shouldn't have been. And everyone's like, that can't be good.
Okay.
It didn't have to be so exciting, but they did it poorly. I agree with you.
You know, that scene isn't bad, but when they're all standing in the same room, just kind of like... Which, I mean, this is what you would do when you grip something when things are shaking and moving. But it just was really done poorly. I guess a good example of kind of that kind of static action, or like, you know, if a room is shaking, like things are going. Doctor Who, they usually when the TARDIS takes off, it like they all have to grab something on because it's shaky and not. But they do a really good job of kind of incorporating some movement into that, some like element of drama. And maybe instead of doing that with the people, they chose to do it with the camera. Regardless, they don't add up.
Hot take, if your spaceship taking off looks, if the people on side react stupider than people on the subway just holding on, then it's a bad design.
Yes,
it
exactly.
should look like, not saying they should be that nonchalant, but they shouldn't all be like, whoa. They should at least be prepared for it.
Yeah, no, it just was not.
If I can do that while trying not to touch anyone, then they can do that on a spaceship.
Yeah. You can be static but still be entertaining in an action shot. It just wasn't happening.
Yeah, this was a terrible mix of the characters were way too static and moving in that static.
It kind of looked like they were in Jello.
That's a good point, yeah.
During action scenes.
Yeah, that's a really good point. They were just like constantly like shaking.
They would shake. They kind of like moved really slowly to grab something or do. This is also another overall agenda. The movie was kind of slow. You know,
which is fine because it's like 90 minutes.
It's a really quick.
Crazy.
It's a really short movie, which was really great for me watching it today. But you know, it felt like I'd be watching one scene. Maybe it was only a minute long. It felt like 10, where I was like, this is still going on. Yeah. And that's because of everything we've just said.
Overall, I thought the movie had a lot of... I didn't know how to phrase this, except that the movie is just overall really cheesy.
Yeah.
Like we talked about the hallucinations. The concept that someone's saying something in Latin is just stupid.
To be honest, that part of the movie just didn't do it for me.
One of the worst parts, though, the cheesiest parts, was the Event Horizon ship design.
Yeah.
It looked like... You take a little tennis ball, put a big, long, like, s'more stick through it, and then put a basketball on the other end. That's what it looked like. There was this weird tube connecting the like gravity drive and the crew quarters. It looked stupid.
It's not aerodynamic at all.
It clearly couldn't have taken off. And one of the things that bothers me about space design in general is everyone is so obsessed with making unique looking ships. Like, cars all look like cars. The most unique car is still, you'd look at it and say, that's a car. Not every spaceship needs to reinvent how spaceship will look. They can all look pretty unique while still just being variations of, like, the Apollo rocket.
Yes.
I get space stations are different. Like,
right.
That I don't mind when they look like just floating
You
cities.
get a little freedom on that.
Yeah, but it's the shifts that kind of look stupid every time. The gravity drive was just way too dramatic looking. Like it had spikes sticking out of it. It was dumb. It
was a little excessive.
The scene in which Justin has become catatonic at this point, and he's lying in bed, and a character is pacing, and literally the instant the scene starts, it's obvious that she's going to pace until Justin disappears. It just is framed in such a way that it's so obvious what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And then lastly, Laurence Fishburne's, like, captain's chair is just hanging down from the ceiling, constantly rotating. Yeah. It's incredible. Like, at all times, he's, like, turning his head to look at people. It's awesome. By awesome, I mean stupid.
One of the other issues I had was the transmission. You know, when they watch it in the ship, it kind of looks weird, which, I mean, I guess is kind of intentional. But then it, you know, it shows, like, the ship went somewhere and picked up a monster. And I just didn't understand the purpose of that. And that was, you look at the monster, it's very, you know, Clive Barker influence there.
Yeah. I think it was meant to be like a metaphorical monster, but it didn't make
existed.
that clear. Yeah.
I don't know. think in terms of like the ship haunting them versus a monster haunting them, I would have preferred that monster revisit from that transmission. It kind of lost me because I was expecting it to come back.
It was a weird, like, the concept of the gravity drive taking you to a dimension that drives you crazy is so Lovecraft, and it draws upon haunted house stuff, which is weird to me. It could have been pretty good either way, but it's kind of caught in this weird middle that I didn't love.
I didn't really pick on up on it that the ship was haunting them. I know it said like the ship has a mind of its own, but like I really didn't.
They had to explicitly say it because it wasn't clear.
Yes, I realize that. That's all I have to say about that. But I am ready to talk about Justin.
Okay.
So Justin is the guy who got slurped into.
They call him Baby Bear, which I thought was cute, actually.
Baby Bear and Mama Bear.
That's what I like. He was like a young kid. That's what I was talking about with a. It did feel like coworkers. They're like, yeah, he's Baby Bear. We gotta look after Baby Bear.
Yes, he gets slurped up and then doesn't die, which I initially thought he did die until I saw him again, and then I realized he didn't. But there were just some really like dumb kind of cheesiness around him, and also his death was really bad.
Well, actually, he didn't die.
He died eventually.
No, well, I mean, I'm sure he died of old age eventually, but...
Oh, you're right. It wasn't really his death.
It was him being put to sleep in stasis, so eventually he would have been woken up again.
You're right.
I don't imagine it's going to go well when he's woken up, but at the end of the movie, he was alive.
That's true. Yeah, you're right. He was one of 3. But before, so his almost death...
Yes.
was really bad.
I quite liked that scene, except for the fact that, because he's saying, if you saw what I saw, you would join me in here. He's like so desperate to die, so he doesn't have to see that stuff again.
Well, I also kind of liked though that it wasn't necessarily him talking at all points, because he's like, he does, and I thought this was a great scene. It's just his physical, it's the effects that are bad, but because he's talking about, if you've seen what I've seen, you would be in here too. But then it like right as after he pushes so he's in like the chamber,
the airlock,
the airlock chamber, so he can go out or go in,
and he's not wearing a spacesuit, and he hits the button, so it's just gonna shoot him out into space.
So he's reasoning with them of why he's going to hit the button, saying, if you've seen what I've seen, you would. And then he hits the button, but then it flashes back to his original self. He's like, no, I don't want to die. You got to let me back in. And
I absolutely hated that, because it defeated the purpose of the whole scene, which was him being so traumatized that whatever it is, it's very Lovecraft, is so scary. I cannot accept the possibility that I might ever see that again.
No,
and that's why I have to kill myself.
I liked that part. It was bad when
he woke up.
Yeah.
It undid all the things he was doing.
But then, he had already hit the door open, so they couldn't bring him back, couldn't keep him back. And his veins like start to rise out of his arms.
I'll talk about that in Spooky.
Oh, okay.
Don't worry.
But Laurence Fishburne's character, he goes, Justin, as he was outside of the craft trying to do a repair or something.
Yeah, he happened to be in a suit outside the ship, and so he came over and rescued him.
He nosedives towards the door, and Justin flies out, and he's got blood spewing from his orifices because he's in space, and Fishburne grabs him and just flings themselves back into the airlock, and they somehow managed to prevent him from actually dying. But it was just the cheesiest thing.
I did like as he's because Laurence Fishburne's on the other side of the ship, and there's like a 2-minute delay in the airlock to pressurize before it releases it. So he's got 2 minutes to get across the ship to rescue him, and he's like, "I'm coming, baby bear."
Yes.
Which wasn't, I think it wasn't supposed to be funny, but it was.
It was extremely funny.
So I asked if you were ready to talk about Justin, but what I meant was Cooper. So, just to recap.
Let's talk
Cooper, in an explosion, gets blown off into space, And while the rest of the plot is happening, he's kind of just hanging on to this piece of metal flying through space. He uses his air tank to shoot him back towards the ship. And right at the climax of the movie, when Laurence Fishburne's like about to get shot by Weir, he's like, "I'm back!" And he lands against a window and is like, "Oh shit!" And then Weir shoots the window, it explodes, and Weir gets sucked out. That was dumb, and I feel like I don't need to elaborate on that.
No, but there was just so much dialogue for that, and it was terrible.
Oh, and then the best part is after that, he comes back and enters the ship and is one of the surviving characters.
Yeah. His dialogue overall was not great. Yeah. I liked him as a character. I guess I wanted to like him as a character.
There wasn't anything to dislike.
But there was just his dialogue was very cheesy, but oh my gosh, him floating off on his own was... I did kind of like his solution of using his air to get him back, but it was not... I was like, how in the world is that going to work?
He had been blown off with such force that there just wasn't, like... Physically, I would be amazed if there was enough force for him to propel himself back.
Also, when he starts to propel himself back, like, we get that shot of him kind of propelling himself towards the planet. The ship's not even in view.
Yeah.
Which tells you he's quite far.
If you can't see what you're going for in space and you don't have, like, a ship or something, I think you're screwed.
Yeah.
One of my problems is the plot is pretty straightforward. There really isn't a complication or a twist. People show up, people realize it's haunted, they try to leave, they can't, then they leave. It just wasn't really any hiccups, there wasn't anything that they discovered the hard way, just kind of showed up and left.
Yeah, there was just a lot of, like, moments that happened.
Yeah.
Kind of stitched together with some sort of plot.
Mm-hmm. The scene in which they're approaching the event horizon and they're like trying not to hit it, it was just really dumb. There was no reason to do that. They were like, let's get as close as we can, as fast as we can. And then you just, why? Why not just show us the ship? Why do you have to make a whole deal out of it?
Because their budget.
But they also then showed the ship. So like...
Which most of their budget was spent on.
Yeah. Literally a third of the budget was in the shot that Ashley and I are talking about.
Yeah.
Sorry, a third of the visual effects budget.
Yes.
Which isn't that much better, but...
Even still. So you're wondering why we're hating on the visual effects. It's within good reason.
Yeah. It's because it's essentially operating with like 60% of the budget it should be. So the opening credits are just way too long, and they also don't show you anything interesting during it. So they're expecting you with no connection to the movie to sit through. It did that thing where it shows everyone first, and then the movie starts. But, like, nothing happened. There was nothing in the background to entertain yourself. It's just kind of effects.
I'm so glad. I didn't even put that in there because I assumed it was just me being impatient.
No, it was...
But I'm so glad that you confirmed that for me.
There was nothing interesting to occupy us, and then they also didn't earn our time with, like, an opening scene. They just were like, okay, I know you just sat through the trailers, but now it's time to just, look at the credits here.
Yeah.
And then lastly, the Sam Neill hallucinations before he even gets to the ship. I guess it might have some kind of a lore explanation because he built the ship, but it is dumb.
It's super stupid. Also, just on top of that, Claire's kind of role in that, it just was stupid. And I guess it's more of just your original point of it, the hallucinations before it started versus, like, I really enjoyed Laurence Fishburne's character's hallucinations because it's like, oh man, this thing happened to me. I think I'm seeing it, and then we see it.
He was the only person who, like, I actually did want to know more about his hallucinations.
Yeah.
Everyone else was just so plain. It was like wife, child. I was like,
But I think they, like, I guess the child too, they just show up at, like, the appropriate time versus Fishburne. Versus Sam Neill's character. It shows up ahead of time. We also get a lot more backstory to it, visually versus verbally, and I think that could have been something that was more verbal.
Mm-hmm. If they maybe found some kind of a way to convey that he was metaphorically haunted by his wife without literally having hallucinations, I think I would have liked that. But instead they chose to use the same device they used to show all the other characters, and it was bad.
Listen, he wakes up in bed and like looks at the pictures of them. We could have settled on that.
And then he was like, I'll miss you every day. And I'm like, we get it. We don't need any hallucinations.
Yeah.
Do you have any more notes on what you didn't like about the movie?
Nope.
Okay. So it sounds like we're ready to talk about the spooky. Ooh.
You were going to say the bad, weren't you?
I tried to, yeah. The spooky. Ooh. So the scariest thing for me in the movie was in the airlock scene with Justin. He realizes he doesn't want to get sucked out into space, which I think is stupid. But big picture, I mean, I understand why he doesn't want to get sucked out into space. I myself don't want to get sucked out into space. But like, it's a dark room, and there's a red light flashing. There's a siren playing. There's gas being released as it's pressurized. And as he looks down, he looks at his arms, and the skin around his veins gets sucked tight, so they start like bulging and sticking out. That was a really spooky thing to see. And it was the right mix of like body horror being changed. It was good.
Okay, I have to agree that it was a good body horror shot. Mm-hmm. For me personally, I thought it was really goofy.
The scene was goofy, but that one shot I liked, yeah.
The effects weren't that good. I don't think the effects did it for me, too. I couldn't separate it from the brownish-looking pipe cleaners on this guy's arm.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I had a whole section about the bad effects on this movie. I guess I can't disagree with that. Another jump scare I liked was towards the beginning after Sam Neill's nightmare. He's shaving in the mirror, and he has a straight razor. And so as he goes to shave his neck, he has a lot of hesitance towards it. And right as he puts it to his neck and starts to move it, it just cuts to the next scene. And I thought that was a good transition because it would have been a really cheesy jump scare, but it clearly played up like it was going to give you a jump scare, and it just moved to the next scene. I liked that. That was a tasteful. It was a nice understanding of what was scary that kind of subverted what you're expecting.
So one of the things that I didn't put any jump scares because I think they're cop-outs, but sometimes they are worth mentioning. I didn't find most of the jump scares particularly worth mentioning, but there was a scene where what's-her-face was being haunted by her child, and there's a tent in the medical room, and you just see a hand kind of rake the tent. It wasn't it didn't make me jump, but I thought that the raking of the hand, which is a little tropey, but I think it was filmed well. It was lit well where it was spooky.
The audio, that was one of the only good audio cues in the movie.
Yeah. That was good. What else? Oh.
I liked when there's this corpse floating around frozen, and when they turn on the gravity drive, I don't know if I'd call it spooky. I guess I just liked it. But they turned on the gravity drive, and it hit the ground and just shattered into a million pieces. I liked that shot. That was really good effects.
That's pretty spooky. I don't like how one of the women called it a corpsicle.
I actually have it in my notes. Corpsicle shattering, word for word.
I mean, corpsicle will be in my new vocabulary. Like, I don't hate the word. I just hate it in context.
It was a little tasteless, but...
Yeah, exactly. So the next thing that I thought was kind of spooky when Laurence Fishburne's character is being haunted by, the passenger left behind. There's one moment where he's in... Is it water? It's not water. It's like that fluid.
Yeah.
It catches on fire, and I think that's just the hallucination. But then the guy who got left behind rises out of the flames, and not like slowly rises, like he kind of quickly pops up. And I thought was kind of spooky, kind of the way he just like, because we hadn't seen that character previously. He just was only described. So I personally put that in my spooky.
I would just like to point out that after he rose, it was revealed that character was Weir, who had survived. Yeah.
It was?
Yeah.
No, Weir had the sewn in face.
Yeah, but then, like, he rose from the water, they had the fire thing, and then it was revealed that it was Weir. He turned into Weir.
Oh, he turned into Weir. Okay. Sorry. Yes, you're right. It was yes. Sorry. Thank you for completing that. For a second, I was confused thinking that I had it wrong, which is also possible.
So, the last thing I liked was there's this scene in which Laurence Fishburne is scanning the room for life when they just get on the ship, and he goes, this place is like a tomb, and a glove floats by him, and that doesn't really do it justice, because the way they played with sound was really good. It was like, it really nonchalantly killed all of the background noise, and not in a way that makes it clear it's ramping up for a jump scare. It just, the scene was progressively quieter and quieter, like you're going through a cemetery. Everything here is dead, and then it surprised you. That was good, but unfortunately it comes with a complaint, which is that they used that so often that it became very easy to predict. Yeah. But in its first usage, I loved it.
I think for me, I didn't love it. Mm-hmm. I actually purposely left it off of this list because it was kind of followed up with a little bit of a cheese moment that kind of took away from any sort of impactfulness the scene might have had, at least for me. That just was like, I couldn't include it because I was like, dang, kind of ruined it. Mm-hmm. So the last one I have, one thing I did like was at one point they're all kind of in the main space and there's banging on the walls, and as like whatever is banging, it's kind of going through the metal, so you're seeing these giant hands push through. Mm-hmm. I thought it was shot pretty well to where I felt it was kind of spooky, but then also Weir's reaction to it actually made it spooky because he was very stoic and it was like, open the doors, and they're all like, wait, what the heck? And to me, the combination of seeing the hand push through and just Weir's like deadpanned, open the doors kind of face, really, it gave me the spooks.
Yeah. Well, then also, I believe it was Stark, as he reached to open the door, she grabbed his hand and twisted it, and that seemed to like break him out of whatever trance he was in, which was extra spooky because he has the confidence of like a guy who understands the ship, and the fact that he then seems, the confidence all of a sudden doesn't seem to stem from him understanding what's happening.
Yeah.
It's spooky. So, do you have anything to add for overall notes?
I mean, overall, I enjoyed it. Like, it wasn't a bad movie, per se. There was a lot. As soon as I started watching it, I understood why you chose this movie.
Yeah.
And by you chose, I mean I bought it at Savers and gave it to you. But it's one of the more enjoyable movies we've watched.
That's fair. I don't know why I like the movie. I shouldn't like it. It doesn't do anything great, and it does a lot of things really badly. But I do like the cast. Laurence Fishburne and Sam Neill carry the movie. Mm-hmm. They're both kind of in their signature roles.
Sam Neill really...
Yeah. He's in like his doctor nerd role. Or Laurence Fishburne is in his like
hero,
serious captain role, and they both just do a great job. It's got the kind of deep space horror of Alien, but it doesn't actually make a scary story. I like the idea of a living spaceship, but instead of developing the idea, it kind of hands it to us. I would have liked to see it evolve from there's something on the ship to maybe the ship is haunted to the ship is the thing that's haunting us. And I also would have liked to see more Lovecraft influence on it rather than Hellraiser.
Yeah.
The jump scares start out fine, but it becomes predictable. And unfortunately, I think my enjoyment of this movie is fully insincere. Cooper coming back from space is hilarious. Laurence Fishburne's swivel chair is hilarious, and I like making fun of the movie, but it doesn't do a lot of things. It's a fun watch, but it's not a really good movie.
This movie is definitely not worth watching. Like, I think if you want some good background movie, put it on, but I don't know if it's necessarily you have to be in the type of mood to watch something that you don't understand why you're gonna like it. Because I definitely am on the same page of like, I don't know why I enjoyed this movie, but at the same time, it does feel like, why did I watch this movie?
Mm-hmm.
So I would say it's a medium watchable scale on the scale.
So my Joseph DeStasio memorial line highlight was Weir is talking to Miller after they've made the decision to leave the ship. And he goes, "What about my ship? You can't just leave her." And Miller, who's Laurence Fishburne, goes, "I have no intentions of leaving her, Doctor. I will take the Lewis and Clark to a safe distance, and then I will launch tac missiles at the event horizon until I'm satisfied she is vaporized. Fuck this ship." And that was part of what I liked it wasn't like funny or anything, but Miller, that whole movie, was just so stoic. He was like, whenever his crew started to freak out, he would snap at them. He like, "You're out of line. Like, we're here to do a mission." He just had no patience for people who freaked out. And the fact that he finally was ready to just be like, "This ship is evil," was pretty impressive. If this movie was food, it would be McDonald's. It's gross. You know it's unhealthy, but you know, sometimes you just gotta go. You just gotta eat it. You got a craving for it.
I think that's on par.
Mm-hmm. What would you like to rate it?
I gave it a 7 spheres.
That's not bad. I gave it 5 ice cold refreshing corpsicles on a hot summer's eve.
I'm
Happy
glad
4th of July, y'all.
Yeah, we are filming this on the 4th. I'm glad I brought up corpsicle before that because people would have been confused. Anything else to add?
No.
When is this episode going to come out quickly?
Next Wednesday.
You're right. Okay, we're good still. I was gonna mention the core conventions, but
next week we will be watching the 2006 film The Wicker Man, starring Nicolas Cage, currently rocking a 3.7 out of 10 on IMDb. If you don't know of this movie, but have seen a video in which Nick Cage in a bear costume punches a woman in the face, that's from this movie. The same scene where he goes, "Not the bees, not the bees." That's this movie. And what else? What's another good one? I guess we'll just have to watch it and find out.
I mean, I can give the little synopsis. No.
Just tell us where to watch it.
Oh, you can purchase it on YouTube, Amazon Prime, Vudu, nowhere for free.
Heartbreaking. Used to be on Netflix,
sad.
I think.
Netflix, bring it back. Okay. Anything else?
No.
No?
No, I think that's everything. We had a pretty straightforward episode. Wasn't exactly short, but it was straightforward. Guess I do have something I'd like to talk about. I just saw The Black Phone. Mm-hmm. I love it.
Nice.
I don't know. You guys don't need to take my opinion on whether or not you see it, but I didn't think it looked that good. I watched it because people were talking about it and I wanted to stay up to date, and it was kind of lame in a lot of ways, but
nice.
Yeah, I don't really want to go into detail in case I spoil it for anyone, but
that's okay.
Just, you know, if I had to rate it, I'd say like 4 out of 10.
Oh, wow.
Really
pretty low.
Great. It was right on the level of like, it's actually probably closer to 5. It's like as bad as it can be without being an insult to horror. Is like, I was like, yeah, it was fine.
The last thing I want to share is a review from one of our listeners, but also a fun fact from our Skeleton Key episode, in case you thought the commentary about raccoon penile bones were done. They're not. Oh my God. So Kate, our friend Kate, who is a loyal listener.
Kate D or
Kate B.
Okay. We do have 2 different Kates
yes,
who are
that's
fans.
True. Kate B. She gave us a fun fact about raccoons, that their penile bones are formally called OS penis, but is often referred to as baculum, and people actually use them to make jewelry on Etsy.
fucked up.
But she also gave us a glowing review saying that this is genuinely becoming one of her comfort podcasts and that she saves episodes and listens to them when she needs something funny and entertaining. And says,
Kate.
you guys are doing an amazing job. So thanks, Kate. Is so happy. That makes me so happy.
Yeah. Also, while I was in Iceland, I went to the Reykjavik Penis Museum. I saw a bunch of different animals. My biggest takeaway, though, was we saw Jimi Hendrix's penis, and I hope that whoever did the cast did a terrible job. They just did not. Like, it wasn't a size thing or anything. It just very clearly was bumpy. They just half-assed making the cast. It was bad.
I would like to follow this story up by when I told my dad that you were going to Iceland, he goes, oh, what's in Iceland? And I said, I don't know. So then he walks away and comes back and he goes, ask Carter if he's going to the penis museum. This was like day 4. And Carter goes, that's like the first thing we did. Actually, first of all, Carter follows it up with just the picture of Jimi Hendrix's casting and then goes, that's the first thing we did.
Like, look at this. That's not even like an insult to Jimmy.
No,
clearly that's a shitty cast.
It's a bad casting.
Like, looks like someone made it out of sand on the beach. It
just immediate gratification though.
Yeah.
But yeah,
All
I think that's it for today. If you liked what you heard, please share with your friends, but also please, rate, review, and subscribe. We're available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, basically wherever you listen to your podcast. And we're also available on Instagram. You can find us there at Horror Sucks Podcast. And feel free to send us a message and let us know what you think. Maybe we'll shout you out.
And whatever you do, for the love of God, please donate to the Dune animated series Kickstarter. And also stay spooky.
Is that where you mentioned that you donated money to?
No,
okay.
that was Texas Chainsaw Mascara.
Oh, that's right. Good word. All right.
Hey, I wouldn't donate money to the Dune Kickstarter. Are you kidding me? There's no way they could license that off a Kickstarter.
No.
Yeah.
All right. Horror Sucks is brought to you by Wild Thing Media, music and production done by Ashley Atkins, and editing done by Carter Rhodes. Thanks for listening. We done.